Hey guys, how's it going? Jason Sensational here, and welcome back to the channel where today we have another seasonal lineup video for you guys. This one is a little bit different. This one is super engineered to do very specific thing, and that is to actually absolutely beat up on control decks and anti-control decks. This lineup features Scouts, the deck that we all know and appreciate, Azir Aurelia, and TF Nami. This lineup is very interesting because it runs two decks that I think a lot of you would consider to be not very good. Those are Azir Aurelia and TF Nami. Both decks that don't have very impressive ladder stats, but I think in a tournament meta, they can do a very powerful purpose in farming certain lineups. Now, I think I probably wouldn't recommend this to you guys as like an open round lineup, but I think if we get to the top 32s, this lineup could definitely see some very interesting play, because right now I think with RA going on this week or last week, I think what we've seen is that the lineup featuring Ahri, Kennen, Lee Sin, and Pantheon has been proving to be very powerful, and not a lot of decks really have answers into exactly Ahri, Kennen plus Lee Sin. One of the main decks that you really fight against that is, of course, Ahri, Kennen, but once that gets banned, there's not a lot of decks out there that really deal very well into those two decks combined. And that's where this lineup kind of comes in. This lineup really aims to tear apart Ahri, Kennen and also Lee Sin to an extent, for sure. So first things first, we have Scouts. This is the pretty standard list that I think most of you guys see on ladder. Down to pretty much 30, maybe 37 of the cards. I think the last few cards that people are kind of splashing around are within the 6 drop. So this version of the deck runs 2 Genevieves. Some decks run Cytherea, some decks run a split of them, some decks run a few other interesting cards. Some decks might even run the Penitent Squire just to get a little bit more of a challenger bonus. But overall, this deck mainly aims to swarm the board, have the challengers such as Blinding Assault and Fleet Feather Tracker to pair with cards like Misfortune or Resolve Sharpside to gain these value trades, gain tempo, and then pressure the board with level champions or rallies. So this is a pretty typical list. I think a lot of you guys know what Scouts really aims to do. Right now, its biggest purpose is to kind of have a favored matchup into Ahri, Kennen, but also do relatively well spread across the board, only losing to other bigger Demacia decks. Now we get into decks such as Azir Aurelia and TF Nami. Now, these are a lot more focused in on what they're aiming to beat than a deck like Scouts. These are very focused on the slower decks, so Ahri, Kennen, Lee Sin, Darkness, Thralls, Feel the Rush, whatever it may be. Any deck that doesn't aim to beat you down, these will run you over. So I think a lot of you guys still remember the power level of Azir Aurelia, being able to summon Sand Soldiers turn after turn, even on your defensive turns, having the Blade Dances to just apply a lot of pressure onto your opponent. With the Ionia package of being able to protect your own units, send units back, there's a lot of ways to maintain tempo, and you can often not just beat up on your opponent if they just have a poor draw. We have huge protection cards such as Shapestone, Lead and Follow, Notify, and Twin Disciplines to buff up our units which have relatively weak stat lines, such as Greenglade Duo only having 1 health, Sparring Student only having 1 health, Relia only having 2 health. But this deck does do very well if you get down Azir and Deus. When you have this sort of engine on board, you can often not outrace even aggro decks. So while this sort of deck might be a little bit weaker into aggro decks, you still have a fighting chance against them. And I think we see a similar story with TF Nami. Again, with a card like Nami, a lot of decks really can't deal with that sort of scaling unless they kill it on sight and there's no other units that it buffs up. Let's say you try to Vengeance Nami and it's their turn, they have a full topping up of mana. They spend all their mana, you spend all their mana, that you remove their Nami, but they gain like 10 damage worth of buffs, and they just run you over with it. This is a very interesting triple threat. You have the Nami that pressures the board, you have the Twisted Fate that pressures the level up, and you have the Elusives that pressure the life total. This sort of deck is very powerful against, again, the slower decks, the ones that really can't deal with Nami, the ones that can't deal with buffed up elusives. Any deck that doesn't aim to run this deck over will likely just fall very far behind unless they have a very timely Ruination or a very timely Vengeance or Mini Morph or any sort of single target removal once Nami comes down onto the board. Unfortunately for lineups, there actually isn't much data revolving around decks like Azir and TF Nami, so you're just going to have to trust me on this one. Actually, let me look for TF Nami because it could be on here. Twisted Nami, no, okay. Alright, no such luck, but you're going to have to trust me on this one, and you'll have to trust on the scrims on this one, but I will show you guys what the overall lineup is aiming to do because it does run the core deck of Scouts. So let's take a look at Scout's lineup and its matchups, and we'll talk a little bit more about how Azir and TF Nami fall into it. I think right off the bat, the one thing that should catch your eye is the fact that Miss Fortune Quinn is favored into... Oops, sorry about that. Let me adjust the camera so you guys can see. I think the one thing that you guys should draw your attention to is the fact that Miss Fortune Quinn is slightly favored into Kennen Ahri, both variants having between a 54 to a 59% win rate against it. This is very, very powerful because Ahri Kennen itself doesn't really have that many sort of counters. I think a lot of people will either choose two directions to counter Kennen Ahri. One is some sort of hyper-aggressive deck, go wide very, very quickly and try to kill your opponent by turn 5 or 6, and hope that they're unable to stop your pressure. The second one is to go very, very slow, run a lot of removal, Ice Shards, Avalanche, Ravines, Withering Wails, whatever it may be. And then there's the ones in the middle, such as Scouts. While it falls a little bit more on the aggressive side, you have Azir and TF Nami. These can fundamentally just do very, very powerful things against Azir or against Kennen Ahri, because Kennen Ahri itself lacks a lot of interaction that a lot of other control decks do have. You're able to set up your engines such as TF or Nami or Azir or the Deus and have a lot of pressure because our game plan is just a lot more powerful, a lot quicker than their opponent trying to level up Ahri. Because our game plan is faster and more efficient, we are able to pressure out their game plan, and ultimately our game plan gets to the end faster than theirs. The next things I do want to draw attention to are the SI Freljord decks, this being Tryndamere Trundle, but also Anivia, or any sort of other sort of SI Freljord deck, although I don't really know what others ones could be. But again, the Nami outscales, the Azir just provides too much pressure for the removal, and the Scouts just has rallies. Let's keep moving to the right a little bit. And you'll notice Thralls in a very similar capacity, Scouts just completely runs over it. Now where I think this lineup is a little bit awkward into is aggro. You'll notice that Scouts has actually really favored matchup into both Spiders and Draven Rumble, and I would assume that it has a good matchup into Diana Nocturne as well. So this one's a little bit more even, but overall Scouts is pretty okay into most aggro decks. However, Azir and TF Nami are probably a little bit worse. They're not unwinnable, they're not super polarized. They might be like 40-45 to 60-40 55. You definitely need to high roll a little bit into aggro, get off a good start, hope they're a little bit slower in order to get to the end. But the overall lineup is weaker into aggro. You'll expect, if you run into triple aggro, you'll expect the Scouts to get banned quickly, and you'll have to play a little bit of an uphill climb into most of the other decks. But even then, they all have their own outs, and if you are very skilled at TF Nami or Azir, I'm sure you'll remember how even in the past, aggro hasn't been that much of a trouble for those two decks. Some other matchups you might notice it to be a little bit weaker is into the bigger Demacia decks, Scouts especially having Shyvana Pantheon. If you run into triple Demacia, you're going to expect to need to have some plan against it. And that's where this deck will fall apart a little bit because they won't ban Scouts, and your Scouts is going to force to have to win some sort of Demacia deck. I think the other two decks, the Azir and the TF Nami, are a little bit weaker into the triple Demacia lineups as well, but that is the give and take that you give for being so good into a lot of these slower control decks and anti-control decks. That's sort of the gist of the sort of lineup. You are a little bit weaker into the bigger board-based decks. You are a little bit weaker into aggro, and maybe some very niche PNZ heavy removal kind of decks. But overall, your goal is to target those slow decks that don't really have a lot of interaction, and those decks are actually at the top of the meta right now. So those are Lee Sin and Kennen Ahri, as well as some of the more control decks like Field of Rush, Thralls, Darkness, etc. So that's the sort of gist of the lineup. I'll give you guys some scrims, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Hopefully this helped. Maybe this one's a little bit more experimental. Definitely a little high risk, high reward. If you expect a certain meta. I probably wouldn't recommend this for an open round, but maybe if you make top 32, something to keep in the back of your mind. So I'll leave you guys with some games. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out, guys, and take care. So we have here the first scrim. For some reason the audio didn't capture, so this is a post commentary, but nonetheless we are playing against a sort of interesting lineup. This is pretty, I wouldn't say standard, but this is an anti-control lineup as far as things go. We have Thralls, we have Tough Caps, and we have Bandletree. I think against a lineup like this, we are pretty happy to see an anti-control lineup because I think that's what's good for us. Definitely Thralls. Thralls is probably the one we want to just really focus on 2-0ing. On the Puffcat deck, we could probably beat with our eyes closed. But you'll see how that game rolls out. So this is pretty much just like banning like the best of the worst. They're not bad decks per se, but our lineup is aimed to target them, and so we just want to know which one is the worst for us. I think Thralls is the best for us regardless of whatever we play, so there's no reason to ban that. I don't really respect Puff Caps as a deck, I'm sorry. So that leaves Tree. Tree has Flock, Tree has Pokey Sticks, Tree has some sort of interaction, group shots, things like that. Some sorts of cheap removal that are a little bit annoying to us, and so I choose to ban it. What am I expecting a ban on? I'm expecting a ban on... Honestly, I thought it would be Scouts, but actually I'm not sure, because he knows that he has to play Thralls, and the worst matchup is probably Zerelia. I think for him, he should be banning what he thinks is weakest for his Thralls, which should be Zerelia, but he ends up banning Scouts instead, which is fine for us because we're pretty happy playing into Thralls anyway. So the game plan here, 2-0 Thralls. If we need to beat up Puff Caps, we could probably do that as well. But overall, this should be a very good matchup for us. So he queues up into the Puff Cap deck first. See how this one goes. Zerelia. They're running a little bit fewer removal. I think their only removal is like 2 Mystic Shots, 2 Thermo Beams, and like 2 Poison Darts, which is very insignificant for us because we're running practically the same amount of protection spells. So Twin Disciplines, Nopify, Lead and Follow, things like that. So right off the bat against these slower control decks, I think the mulligan is quite simple for this kind of deck. You're just looking for Azir and you're looking for Deus. I keep one of these Dune Keepers. I wonder why. I think mulling the Dune Keeper was correct. I'm not sure why I exactly kept it, but this turn is a little bit interesting. I know he has Poison Darts. I don't want to play out my Sparring Student into potential Poison Dart. So now I can play Sparring Student as well, paired with the Dune Keeper. So if I did play Dune Keeper last turn, I could play Deus this turn, but that's a little bit hard to know. So this bait, I don't know if it counts as baiting out like a 3-mana Thermo, but I'm definitely really happy to see that. This whole turn gone away, and I get a pretty okay attack. So this is a little bit interesting as well. Because he's tapped out, this right of calling is completely free. He has no way of stopping this. And I don't ever want to play this when he has like Mystic Shot mana up. I really would not like to play Twin Discipline just to save my target. And at this point, it's a little bit early to just sack my crystal as well. So I want to draw Azir, and I do find it. So now I get a pretty easy setup with Azir Deus. Drawing Aurelia here is really good as well. But knowing that he already played one Thermo Beam, the only way he's able to kill this Azir is if he has exactly a second Thermo Beam, and even then he can't play it this turn. So now we're just taking it nice and chill. We're going to set up our engines. We have the Deus. I think I do end up playing Deus here. Playing Aurelia here is a little bit too greedy, because if I play Aurelia here and then I cast Flawless Duet, I can't leave up Twin Discipline mana. And losing Aurelia here would be a little bit bad because I am very low on resources. I need this Aurelia to stick around for a few turns, maybe generate me more than one Blade Dance, and I have ways of protecting it. So letting it die here is a little bit there's not as much purpose behind it. Whereas, I could definitely save in the future, and setting up this Deus means that my Aurelia only gets better in the future as well. So, he has these wimpy ass 2-drops. They get a splash around and do something, but doesn't really change the fact that we are about to just steamroll him. So now that we're completely safe, we have two twin disciplines, and we're ready to just kind of just roll in with the blade dances. Aurelia pretty close to flipping because we do have, was that 4, 6? Whatever it may be, we're pretty close to flipping it. Because on the flawless duet we get 4 attacking, and then on our attack we get 6, which means that if our Aurelia is at 4 right now, we actually get a level on the attack. But this is actually super unfortunate. That hit was inexplicably really good for them, because now my full open attack doesn't actually level up Aurelia. I need to Blade Dance one more time, which I can do pretty easily with like a Defiant Dance. So that's no real big issue, but it was just a little bit of a comedic timing that it hit the exact target it needed to in order to stop my Aurelia level up on the swing. I just go for this twin. If he has like a Mystic Shot, that's totally fine. It's a little bit interesting to note that like even though like this twin is like okay, but like this Caitlyn could block like another Sand Soldier. Actually, I shouldn't have twinned here because the next Sand Soldier would have 2 attack, and then it would die regardless. But baiting out like a 3-mana spell onto that was probably pretty good for us. And now we're in a position where oh, interesting. I guess I'm just putting on pressure. I know that this 3 health unit is able to block twice, and I'm not super happy about that. So I end up recalling it. I think looking back at it, I think it was totally fine to not recall if I wanted to. This stress testing is totally fine. But it was a little bit interesting. I think the twin was arguably not necessary, and this so if I hadn't twinned, I think the Defiant Dance would have been perfect because I still had twin defensively if I needed to save it. But I think the first twin was probably a mistake. And it looks like he's just out of resources. He didn't really have removal. And this is what our deck is doing, right? We just Blade Dance, we Sand Soldier up, level our champions, and just pressure him out of the game. So overall, should be a very good matchup for us, and that's how it really ended up as well. Let's jump in our second game. We have the TF Nami deck versus their Teemo Caitlyn. This one's a little bit interesting. This is definitely a full kick. We're looking for important cards. TF Nami, maybe like a Mystic Shot if he has like a Teemo or something like that. Overall, this hand's looking alright. We do draw a lot of cards, and they do have puff caps. So if we don't kill him fast enough, we are on a little bit of a clock. Slinky 1 dealing 2. I'm getting a little bit of a beat down here, which is a little bit scary. We do want to keep our life total high if we can help it. Still, so far, not too much we can do here. He develops, we just pass, help level up and progress our Nami. If we do hit a Flash of Brilliance, we do have a pretty good setup here. He plays Caitlyn, so the full 1, 2, 3 curve, a little bit scary. Our health total is very important here. We can't take too much damage because otherwise we might die to the puff cap burn. So we have a few options. We can play Ballistic Bot. Ballistic Bot doesn't really block very well. It blocks like the 2-1, and I don't know if that's necessarily good enough. So I go for an interesting play here. Actually iterative their puff cap puppy, and what this does is allows me to get a lot better trades. I can now block the 2-2 and the 2-1 if he wants to attack with it. I think in his spot he was either only attacking with Caitlyn or full attacking, so it was giving him a little bit of an awkward situation there. And I don't know what's with me today, but I just can't stop drawing these flash bombs, and it's really getting on my nerves. But the Flash Balloons is great. We're able to flip Nami, and now all we need to do is just really set up an elusive board, start pressuring out the game, and we're ultimately looking pretty fine here. opponent, on the other hand, has a really aggressive hand, which is kind of uncharacteristic for these Puffcap decks. But he ultimately is applying a lot of pressure to me. His Thermo Beam as well. Like, I can't not have a board. And so ultimately, I think I decide to just iterative the bot here. And I probably replay it because I don't need to really bank the mana because I do have Flash of Brilliance. So I'll just play it back here and have it as a blocker, at least be able to chump out some damage. But I think at this point, you know, if we had drawn like a Get Excited to prevent the Caitlyn from striking too much, if we had drawn some like a Mystic Shot for his puppy, we'd be in a lot better spot. Because now we just really have taken too much damage here. And the puff caps are going to start to add up, the flash bomb as well. Because we have to cycle through our deck a lot, it is a little bit scary. But I think we can still clinch this through. At this point, I value my health total quite high. There isn't really a way he can stop this, and so keeping my health total high is probably like priority number one here. At this point, my Nami is flipping. I'm really just looking for some elusives to end the game. I want to find like a Poro Cannon. I want to discount my Burble Fishes. I need to play a few more spells. I need to draw cards before he's able to get too many Puffcaps or traps into my deck. And I just need some sort of elusives. Buff him up, kill the game, end the game. Flash Brilliance, pretty much like guaranteed. That's level. And then rest testing, okay. Rummage, okay. It's kind of interesting. We do have a handful of spells and draw. We can get down this Burblefish. We're looking okay here. We just need to find a few more elusives, and ideally we can find a way to close from here. But at this point, it's looking alright. Our opponent invests his whole turn into the Ava, and now it's our turn to pop off Flash Brilliance, level up Nami, and then see what the rest of our turn can do. So the contraption is obviously a useless card. There's not much you can do with it. Our main goal here is we want to get down this Burblefish, and we want to buff it, and we want to play some elusives, buff it up, and deal damage to his face. At this point, I'm thinking there's not much my opponent can do if he has like a removal spell for this. I do have plenty of spells I can play to buff it up, so that's like no problem. Right? Poison Dart, no problem. Flash Brilliance, easily buff out of the range. Chrono Shift, kind of bad cards. These are good rummage fodder at the very least. But here's where things get a little bit interesting. Because I know he has the flash bombs, I know he has the puff caps. Drawing cards is a little bit dangerous, but I'm just not really presenting much of a threat at this current point if I just do nothing. So I really want to I take the risk. I draw a couple cards. There's only 2 flash bombs. Like in my top 10 cards, what's the worst that could happen, right guys? So I get another unit here. I want to go wide. I want to see how much damage I could deal with this turn. So we go for a rummage here. I don't know if I want to draw 3 cards. I really can't play all of them. I just need like, you know, a couple more. You know, maybe if I can I can cast a stress testing if I want to. Ultimately, the attack here is okay, but I go for the risk. I'm a risk taker. What can I say? And 2 traps. And 2 shrooms. And 2 traps. And the ballistic ball. And Caitlyn levels up, so now I can't attack with anything that isn't an elusive. Otherwise, I just straight up die. So, yeah. I think this is what you call in the industry a very bad outcome. What was a pretty okay attack has now turned into the absolute abysmal Poro, dealing 1 damage this turn. And we have Foundry of 18 Puff Caps. This is looking like a pretty good GG. But oh, now we don't draw Puff Cap. What's up with that? Now we don't draw Puff Cap. What's up with that? What a stupid game this has been. But you live by the draw, you die by the draw. And we have to accept the outcome here. We have a little bit turn. We have 2 Poros. We have a Shelly. We realistically might have 1 more attack, but now we're locked out of our certain cards. We can't play Rummage. Realistically, at this point, it's a little bit dangerous. So we have very limited spells to work with here. We're just all in here. These 2 stress testing need to take us very, very far. But it looks like he has the removal for the Shelly, which is pretty bad for us. There's not much you can do here. We just cash in these 2 stress testings, get a little bit of buff, and hope takes us to the finish line. But you know, it doesn't look to be quite enough here. We do have the Ebb. It's not over yet, but there are a lot of puff caps in our deck. There are the flash bombs. Each of these trigger twice the Ava. And we just pray at this point that we either don't die or we don't draw enough puff caps so the Poros die. So let's see what's up. Time trick. 6 flash bombs kills a Poro. Oh god. Yeah, there's no hope. Is there? So we play 3 of these, it buffs by 10. No, buffs by 6, we go to 10, 12. Have to go face, and we have to survive here. And we do not. So definitely a very frustrating game, I have to say. But what can you do about it? It was a good laugh. I think we should have won that game for sure. We got really unlucky with the 1 turn where we rummaged into the traps and lost the game, but what can you do, man? All that's left is for us to body Thralls, and that's what we came here for. This is our matchup. We cannot lose. There's no hope for the Thralls player. This is what our lineup is aiming to do, and we will not accept anything less. Let's go in and smack some Thralls. So I think the matchup here is pretty simple. You find Nami, you win the game. And anything else that isn't Nami is quite irrelevant. So full mole, find Nami, very happy. Find a unit from here, and we are golden. He has a Thrall on turn 1. Good for him. We are going to race the living hell out of him. Ballistic Bot, very excellent card here. We're not going to play it this turn because we do want to bank the mana for Nami. Leveling up Nami is how we win the game. And if we play Ballistic Bot now, we're not really leveling up Nami. So we'll play the Ballistic Bot here. We'll pass this. We'll pass this turn, play the Ballistic Bot next turn, and see what we need to do from there. So I really like this turn. Again, you need to think about how you're leveling up Nami, and which means I need to spend mana this turn. So I spend 2 mana on the iterative. It gives me another bot, and it gives me, really importantly, a way to spend my mana because of the ignitions. Flash of Brilliance is the best draw here because now this is a guaranteed Nami flip. And more importantly, I see what's up with my opponent here. He is trying to double avalanche me. He can't do it this turn because he's capped out on his mana. But what he doesn't know is I'm going to have a flip Nami next turn. I'm going to cast a lot of spells, and his avalanche is going to go splat. If he doesn't have an ice shard here, he's unable to kill this bot for the rest of the game. And we'll see if he catches on. He does not. He doesn't have the ice shard. Nami is leveling next turn with the Flash of Brilliance, and we're just going to pop off. There's no way for him to stop it. He has to play out blockers now, and he better be scared for his life here, because he is about to be in the beatdown of the century. And this is why this combo is so good, right? It sort of surprises your opponent. It shouldn't really, but this first flip Nami, buff my units out of avalanche range, end the game. It's pretty simple here. And now we're just counting up, can we deal 18 damage? And with this hand, ultimately, I think we're pretty darn close. We did some useless cards here. Find some more spells, play some spells, and just look for a way. So the main goal here is we need to protect our ballistic bots. So play a couple spells, and then see what the remainder of our mana can allow us to do. Or Kennen here would be pretty nice. Oh hey, what do you know? Free spell. I will take it. Now that I survive avalanche, I can take it a little bit chill, just to see how it's going. This is a lot of damage, huh? 12, 15, 17? Plus 1 with the ignition? 18? Lethal? I count lethal. Do you guys count lethal? So I attack, of course. I don't want to let him play the plus the Clockwork Curator. And, you know, easily turn 5 lethal, right? That's how it goes sometimes. And that's the power level of Nami. It's so explosive with this deck. You're able to get the level up, even though I played 2 units on my board, and I just clocked him from 18 on turn 2. How it goes. Great, starting recording in 3, 2, 1. Moving on to the second scrim here, we have a what is a quite interesting lineup that our opponent is running. So, right off the bat, Hinder Gnosis, Shen J4, and Darkness? Like, his lineup's a little bit over the place. The Kindred Gnosis one, definitely a little bit spooked out. Black Spear, Kindred, Crumbles, all sorts of weird shenanigans that I have no idea what the heck I'm going up against. The Shen J4 list, 3 Tasty Fae folks. Um, Spirits Refuge, Rapaz, like, yeah, I haven't seen this deck in ages. Like, at this point, it's just I ban the deck that I know the least, and that would be Gnosis Kindred. I'm pretty fine into Darkness. I don't think I'd ever ban that. And so we have what is quite interesting here. I think ultimately we're pretty poor into some of these slightly bigger Demacia decks. Even though this is a Shen J4, they still go a little bit bigger than the Scouts, and you'll see really how weak Scouts could be into even the slightest more mid-range Demacia decks out there. So because we know he has a very limited early game, we're going to take advantage of that fact, go wide, and try to pressure him out of the game. So 1 drop, 2 drop, very, very good curve here. If we could play like Pirates this game, we would just go 6 wide by turn 3, but unfortunately, that is not the case. I accidentally passed on my attack turn and missed 2 damage, like a bozo. He draws a 1 drop, like champion. And we're just really sad about ourselves. Bark Beast is super good here. Which is a very excellent 1 drop overall. This is sort of an interesting turn. I could go like Brightsteel Protector into this, but he could equally have his own Brightsteel Protector as well. Getting this kill does enable me to buff up my Bark Beast, and just passing this mana so I can play out my Resolve plus Sharpside on future turn is pretty good. Yep, there you go. We see that he did have the Tasty Fae Folk, and ultimately, I don't know how I get rid of that card. That's gonna heal him, and we were the ones trying to go wide. But now, like, you'll see here, this 3/5 Shen just like trades into everything. We really don't have very good options of actually dealing with it. And like, if this doesn't die, just 2-for-1s are board. I'm actually gonna pause the video here because I think this turn was wrong, and I want to talk about why it's wrong. So the first things first here is we have a barrier and we have sharp sight. I think ideally this turn we do want to kill Shen. If this is probably the only turn we get a chance to do it, you can only have sharp sight as a response, and if we both have sharp sight, then well, we both trade sharp sights, big deal. So I want to sharp sight trade Shen, right? So I need to put sharp sight on one of my 3 attack units. The issue is if he also has sharp sight, Shen becomes a 5/7, and so I don't want to put anything that isn't. I don't want it to value trade, right? So this turn I should have sharp sighted onto the sergeant so that it becomes a 5/6. So even if we both have sharp sight, we just bounce off each other harmlessly. And then I should barrier anything else that isn't the sergeant, because if I barrier anything else that isn't the sergeant, he doesn't actually get the 4 heal this turn. So very, very important decision that ultimately I just wasn't thinking as clearly as I could be, and I just decided to bury the 3/4 without really thinking. But now that we have that explanation out of the way, we're still gonna commit to the sharp. Or well, now I realized, and now I'm debating to myself whether or not I want to commit the sharp sight. Because if he does have it, then we're trading. This is the second alternative best play. We sharp sight threaten off Shen, and even if he does have the sharp sight, our unit doesn't get damaged. So this is like the second best okay outcome. Just threaten the Shen, which is priority number 1, and we'll accept the fact that he can heal up 4 health. I think I should go for the sharp sight, because if I can kill Shen here, again, the mid-range units can't really deal with very easily. We want to try to kill them off and try to beat them down. Yep, sharp sight committed. Say, do you have sharp sight? And verdict is, does have sharp sight. I think this is sharp sight. It can like be a single and be cute and all, but I think it's just a sharp sight there. Do 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 do. Oh, it is a single. Totally forgot. So killing Shen here is like pretty fine. You'll see that like if I had done the other trades around, then like I still would have been like pretty okay as well. But Shen's down. He only has a 4-2. You know, if he's bricked out, we have a chance here. We decide to go wide. We have the Rangers resolve. Alternatively, this one can go like Val or something something, but I want to go wide because he doesn't have the same ability as me to go wide. Now this is an interesting play as well. I do have the resolve, so I know that my 4 health units can't die this turn, which gives me some pretty okay attacks, being able to attack with both my scout unit, the 2/4, as well as my sergeant this turn, and the dragon can't kill either of them, which is pretty neat. This second attack I am less of a fan of. I shouldn't have attacked with the Mirai Warden, and I probably shouldn't have attacked the scout unit, but I was really focused on just like trying to deal chip damage wherever I could, knowing that this dragon like eventually just outscales us. Like if I didn't attack with everything, I just dealt 0 damage, and you'll quickly see how these bigger Demacia decks just really manhandle us. Second Chen, he gets a value trade here. It's pretty much over at this point. Like we just really can't come back from this position. We've just lost board advantage. He's at 15 health. We haven't drawn any champions, and now he's value trading us, which is the worst case scenario for a scout deck. This is like gigabad. Not much we can do about it, unfortunately, and we just have to watch ourselves get consumed by this screeching dragon. So again, not much I can do here. So we're running out of board. We have one more last ditch effort with this for Demacia. But that means we can't play Island Navigator, and so we really have sort of messed up our mana at this point. We have to go for the second best play, which is Valor, Butcher, and for Demacia, and just hope that he has no way of answering the board. Another tasty, quite annoying, but if this for Demacia does go through, if he has exactly nothing, we're going to trade off the board, and maybe, just maybe, we draw all of our late game, one after the other. For Demacia! Nope. Denied. And now we cry. Goodbye, Shen, please? Let's go. But again, at this point, this Screeching Dragon gets another free value trade here. Who knows what other things he has. Like, the problem is his late game is just so much better than ours. And we just have to hope. I think there's no more hope, but hope is all we can have at this point. Yep. And watch as the last bit of hope just leaves my eyes. J4, another value trade. J4 is leveling here, which means that, you know, I no longer get to stick anything onto the board, and that means any champion late game card I draw at this point is essentially garbage. So, sooner or later I'll just concede this game because I know it's over. But just watch myself diddle around as I just pray for this one last top deck to just show me what I'm missing out on. And, you know, Bright Steel. Yep. Get me out of this game. And you really see there, like, Scouts just folds to any slightly bigger Demacia deck, whether that be Sivir Auction or Pantheon, which are the two more popular versions of the deck. But, you know, Shen J4, even though I think the deck sucks, it's still gonna beat up Scouts. And that's where Scouts really kind of falls a little bit. And this lineup a little bit as well, because you'll know that Scouts gets hard targeted. Scouts v Darkness. This should be a fine matchup for us, so let's make sure we don't throw. Off the bat, I do not see misfortune. I don't see like an early game. Early game here is a little bit less important because they do have some plethora of pings and early units. Having a 2-drop to be able to trade down their catalyzer is important, but I don't really see any of that in my hand right now. Draw MF, perfect. Harp Sight, good. If he has catalyzer though, it's a little bit of annoyance because we just don't have a unit here. But thankfully he just doesn't have one, and we're free to play our 3-drop here. We have a little bit of a decision. We could play the Sergeant, or we could play MF. we don't really have an attack here, unfortunately. If we played Sergeant, we would have, but if we did have an attack this turn, then we would have gotten 1 proc for MF. So a little bit of a give and take there. But now that he's played out his cards, this gives us full turn just to develop. And he doesn't have Veigar this turn, so we're looking pretty good overall. Seems like a very solid start for us. We have a lot going on for us, and we have rallies, we have protection tools. How can we lose this game? How? So I think overall game plan here is just go wide, beat him down. We have the Fort Amasi, we have the rallies. On some turn we do have the beatdown plan. Can't attack with MF yet. We know his darkness is going to deal 3 damage next turn, but we do have the sharp sight, we do have the resolve. We have a little bit of protection on our way, but his ability to deal with MF is still very, very existent, and we're not out of the clear just yet. I think this might be wrong. So I resolve here because I'm saying I want to rally. I don't want to float all this mana and do nothing. And I just want to spend my rally. And so because I'm considering that I want to rally, I don't want to give up this unit to the Vile Feast. But I think you'll see later on that losing this resolve might cost me the game. So I chuck in the rally. I kind of go in here, and just say, I'm gonna start pressuring a little bit. Going for the rally. I protect the MF so that he can't darkness me, and that sharp sight still protects it over a ping. Knowing that I can't lose a 3-1 because his 2-1 only has 1 health. If he wants to block with the telescope, he doesn't actually do anything. Berry Shake, kind of funny. Gets like a nice valley block there. And like I generally I would say that Rally look pretty good. We're 2 out of 4 on our MF. If we draw a scout unit, we have the flip. We have another rally. We have the Fort Amasi. He doesn't really have good interaction against these sort of tools. Obviously I need to save the MF here. Going for the sharp sight. I'm gonna just play Jagged Butcher to finish off my turn. Bank 3 into the next turn and look pretty okay. Next turn I could even like sit through a rally. So things are looking up for us here. They don't look too bad. Apologist, yep. So he's diddling around with a little bit of board. We know that. So what's like okay here is like his darkness costs 3 mana. It's very expensive for him. He's using his pings on things that aren't MF. Very good for us. He realistically doesn't have the mana to play another darkness, which gives us quite a big advantage, right? This is interesting. We know MF's at 2 out of 4. Quinn would guarantee the level up here. But we also have Cithria Rally. We also have Fort Amasia Rally. There's a lot of things we can do here. Ultimately, we decided to play Quinn. Quinn being able to pull MF, very good. Quinn being able to pull the Veigar, very good. And here's where I regret using that resolve 2 turns ago. I get punished by this absolute monster chat of a play. Double Pokey Stick to get rid of my MF. And suddenly, I'm in a bad spot. Because now I have no pressure. Even if I rally this turn, I'm really not doing that much. And all of a sudden, my lead, from what seemed like a good position, is now slowly starting to crumble. We still have rally, still have Fort Amasa. We still have Quinn and a wide board. So, we don't look too bad here. We can potentially still sneak a rally through. But from what was a really good spot, it's now starting to fade. If we had Ranger's Resolve still, I think it's pretty safe to say we just would have won the game right here. It's debating the rally there, but if I want to play Sithra Rally next turn, I equally have that opportunity. And now Senna coming down is when things get complicated. I see that I can't play Sithra into his attack, but I also just can't just straight up pass here. And so I'm sort of in this really weird spot because now the fast speed darkness is able to pick down my units. I have a hard time developing this turn, and I just need to pray he doesn't like darkness attack me. Or rather, I do pray darkness attacks me, because if he spends 3 mana on darkness, I think that's bad for him and good for us. And I'm just trying to see if I can sneak down the Cytherea this turn. Vile Feast, which does now let me play Cytherea, because if he wants to play darkness and attack, he doesn't have mana to kill Cytherea. And now I'm setting up against Cytherea. I have the 4 Demasias, and I have the Rally. So again, not the worst. Hoping we can make the best out of a bad situation and just sort of turn the corner. He has blockers, but blockers for fearsome units he does not have, besides a Senna, and we're just hoping we can sneak this. I'm not sure what I do here, but I think what I do here is wrong. I should have 4 Demasiad into Rally this turn, because I would be able to trade up Senna. He's forced to darkness like the Quinn, which, you know, he still can darkness Quinn. And now I'm going to trade off my board. Attacking this 3/3 into Senna, wrong again. I'm losing all my board here. I should have played 4 Demacia into Rally and just hope that this turn would have worked out. But now I'm sacking my board. I play this game really poorly. I definitely had many outs. The MF not dying this turn playing for Demacia, because what you saw here is 4 Demacia is a really strong card in these sort of matchups. But I ended up bricking them somehow in my hand, and that should realistically never happen in this kind of matchup, where we always have board, we have some decent mid-range units, and we have some protection tools to really get there. The fact that I bricked out 4 Demasias in my hand is a really bad sign of how I play this game, and now I no longer have a board, the Rally does nothing, and I'm just in a bad spot. I should still Rally here to trade off Senna, I think, but I greeted again. Not sure what I'm hoping for there, but now he attacks with Senna, Extali as well, Fast Speed Darkness. I just have no situation to do anything. This game could have went a lot better. It just goes to show that, you know, some of your favorable matchups sometimes don't go your way. And if you play them poorly like I did, then you're still going to bound to lose 1 or 2 of them. Yep, I think this game's coming to end about here. It's not much I can do. And he's just put us in like pretty much a lockdown. He's going to start healing. We're no longer going to race him. The only thing we can do is just try to rally on Cytherea. But Cytherea herself doesn't have Fearsome, and this is pretty much pointless. He has to go in, cast the Darkness first, and gets a second Darkness. So again, what do we do here? Somebody tell me. Top right is the best answer, I think. So, just seeing if I have any outs, but I no longer have any. Oh, I pass. Wow, I'm really giving up on this game, huh? Yeah, there's just no attack here anyways, because this just bumps into here. Yeah. So now it's the 4 Demacia rally turn. Yup. Nope. Can I concede yet? Please concede, thank you. Yeah, it just goes to show. I play this game really poorly. Used my resource at the wrong time, and didn't use other resources at the right time, so led me to my downfall. So it goes to show, you can get your practice in, know when to use your cards, because this is my first 2 games with scouts. So definitely make sure you know how to play your decks first.